friends, this is Kagi, and today we have a review of the Honda Steed 600. Yes, we've slowly picked up cruisers, starting with the VRX and the 400th, and now in general the most popular cruiser in Russia is the Steed 600. Naturally, many people know that the motorcycle is called variously. For Europe it is VT600C, for America it is VLX 600 Shadow, and for us it is the domestic name Honda Steed 600. The motorcycle was produced from 1988 to 2008. There were many different modifications. At first the motorcycle had one carburetor for 36 horsepower, then it received a second carburetor. Sometimes it received very rare models with a Springer fork, which is very top. In essence, the motorbike is a classic cruiser inspired by the Softail. There's a 400 model and a 600 model, but let's talk more about the 600 because the 400 is pretty much a headache, with the only difference being it has a 5-speed gearbox and a smaller engine. The motorcycle was somewhat interesting in its time. Even though it looks very large with a wide base, it doesn't weigh that much. It doesn't weigh that much. It ranges from 207 to 217 kilograms depending on the model. 583cc, 2 cylinders, a V-twin, liquid cooling, 36 horsepower, 41 in the latest models, 44 nanometers. And there's a lot of other interesting features we'll discuss a bit later. And again, I'm going to start my monologue about how you naturally need to grow into this motorcycle. There will be few objective shortcomings in terms of breakdowns, but there will be other downsides that I've pointed out. Hopefully you'll like them. Let's move on to the pros and cons. The first disadvantage, as always, is power. Yes, in my opinion, the motorcycle lacks power because 36 horsepower, or 41 at best, for 220 kilograms base weight is very little. It has a maximum speed of 150 km/h, and the acceleration to 100 will be somewhere around 8 seconds, in the best case 7.9, something like that, but in reality it's more like 10. Yes, the motorcycle is drastically lacking in power. This was done for various reasons which we will discuss later, but I still believe that power is indeed one of the primary downsides of this motorcycle. If you evaluate it from a super objective viewpoint, then perhaps this is the only negative aspect you could argue for, but we still have a second issue, which is the chain. Yes, because many who ride cruisers would understand me perfectly right now. A cruiser, especially with 41 or 36 horsepower, is not the kind of bike that should create any excitement from acceleration. There's no issue with it losing power on the chain. It's not a sports bike. It should be just as simple as an angle. Back home, it is very reliable and causes minimal trouble. In fact, the gimbal is one of the advantages of cruisers. Meaning you can purchase a cruiser, it will have a gimbal on it, you won't have to do anything else, just maintain it regularly by adding oil. The chain is an inconvenience as it needs cleaning, lubricating and so forth, and it's unclear why they decided for it to be here, of course. Most likely this is due to the cheapening. Of course, the chain has its own advantages, but it is on this class of motorcycle and with this kind of power that I would neglect the chain because it is useless here. The third disadvantage is the brakes and suspension. Yes, the suspension is quite poor. Actually, it is poor not because it is inherently bad, but simply because of its age. The motorcycles we have are mostly from the 90s, 88 or 89 there. We have a well-developed market with old motorcycles, and a lot of people ride on non-600 scabies. Yes, the suspension is weak. The monoshock that is at the back, one way or another, sometimes punctures and begins to leak. This is normal because, after all, the motorcycle is almost 30 years old, so this is normal. Regarding the brakes, there are drums in the rear and a brake disc in the front, which is in principle, yes. Sure, but yet again, I believe the brakes here don't have enough stopping power. If you're going to tune it up, you definitely need to work on the brakes first, since they're weak in my opinion. However, I will admit that they are sufficient for this particular motorcycle. Let's discuss the last downside I noticed applicable to the 600cc model particularly. Owners would have likely figured it out by now. It's a 4-speed gearbox, yes. Seriously guys, 4 gears? That's so lame I can't even think of worse. Maybe only the halogen bulbs in a 2017 BMW could top that. But let's talk about the transmission. The lack of a 5th gear is simply too evident. What's more, I even missed a 6th gear while throwing. Although the throw is essentially about the Steed engine slightly improved. They're distinct, sure, but the concept is the same, including the 2 plugs on the... What else could the 600 Steed possibly have that would put it in first place? Certainly it's the legendary reliability, the steam engine simplicity that is the key to its success. I should repeat that the downside here is a lack of power, but notably this downside contributes to its reliability. Essentially you're getting a 600cc engine with 40 horsepower. You're getting an engine that's not under any stress. It is liquid cooled and chain operated with an enormous engine lifespan. To destroy it, you'd probably have to be highly incompetent, virtually autistic, because you could indeed run it with vegetable oil quite easily, I dare say. I nearly guarantee it would still work and nothing would go wrong with it. This motorcycle is, quite frankly, exceptional in this regard. Now let's talk about the second advantage, which is its design and sound. It's a matter of personal taste, really, but I think its design is just your typical cruiser. I'm not a fan of such designs, I'm more for roadsters like the Aeron 80. I prefer this minimalist, restrained look. And yet again, I have to say the design is a plus due to the fact that they create a lot of bobbers out of it. They're quite creatively done, and I just can't ignore the version with a Springer. It's simply phenomenal, and it genuinely looks impressive. It's, in my opinion, even more cool than the Harley. Although Harley riders might bash me, I think it looks really cool. For those who are fans of cruisers, I believe this is the top choice. The story about the sound is no different. Put on straight pipes and you'll have a great sound. You won't be too crazy about the default sound because it's a 2x2 with a crossover, hence you'll never be able to achieve the Harley sound. Even then, there's no way to obtain the Harley sound because Harley is rough and sloppy. It's incredibly loud, but I've heard that the first gear crunches as if the designers wanted to emulate the sound a Harley makes when shifting. I'm not sure if this is true or not, but it's a point of conversation. Moving on to the third perk, the weight. Yes, given its size and measurements, the bike has a relatively low weight between 207 to 217 kilograms. This is a significant plus, makes it manageable. Sure, it's a downside that the motorcycle had a 9-litre and 11-litre tank. However, with the motorcycle's fuel consumption of 4.6 litres, 4 highways and 6 cities, it's enough. Yes, this is not a touring bike, you need to understand this. The fourth advantage is the motorcycle's character. As I said, it's a very weak engine that doesn't go anywhere. But for this very reason, it can be safely recommended to anyone. To beginner motorcyclists, especially girls, because the seat position is low, any girl will be able to reach it. This is one of the major plus points of this motorcycle. Of course, most girls prefer sports bikes and like to speed up to 120 miles per hour, but that's a different matter. The fifth advantage is the aftermarket. Really, in Japan you can go to Impex, you can go to eBay, you can find a ton of tuning for this motorcycle on Alibaba or AliExpress, more precisely on Taobao. They make bobbers from it. I'll try to find some cool options to include in my video. But this is a very interesting bike for tuning for aftermarket. There's a lot you can find. These are the pros and cons. I'll select them again, or rather start doing it. I hope it will be useful to you. I'll make a selection of links to the author of Steed 6. If you're interested, go check below. How much do they cost? They start around 130 or 140. They are pretty cheap. My personal opinion about the Steed 600, it is exclusively for those who have figured everything out, who have grown up, who are no longer in a hurry, who don't care anymore about money. There are plenty of things to buy that are as costly as a Harley or other pricey gear, but he doesn't want any hassle. He just rides this, purely a city motorcycle for laid-back evening rides along the boardwalk, because naturally this motorcycle doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't run, it doesn't brake, it doesn't turn, it has no features. There are a lot of interesting motorcycles, but unfortunately I just don't have the time for all that, so I'm trying to find something more intriguing and not yet mainstream. Kaji was here with you. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts about the horse that I haven't mentioned yet. Have a safe journey. Bye and stay happy.